sometimes I purposely go into interviews not knowing stuff, so then it's more
Yeah.
of a genuine conversation. All I know is that I think it was Amy. Was it either Amy or Amber told me about you,
Hmm.
and that are you a survivor of Columbine?
No.
Oh, I'm
Um,
thinking of the wrong person.
but Amy
Okay.
is. Amy is.
Yes, Amy is.
And
Yes.
so is they have another friend that works on their in their nonprofit with them that is also a Columbine survivor. And then Amber is Las Vegas.
Right.
So yeah. So
And
for
the other person. So I thought there was someone that they gave me their name who has been in a mass shooting and also has like ties to a mass shooting through a relative or something.
oh yeah, probably. And I
Okay.
mean, in the little community that we're in, honestly, like in the US, like, unfortunately, gun violence is a huge problem. And so people that have been personally impacted by it, we all sort of know each other, or a lot of us know each other, especially if we're out there at all in the like advocacy world or nonprofits or whatever it is. And so I kind of have connections, as do they, with people all across the country that have just been impacted in different ways. And what you might be thinking about me, but so my story is that I actually have an older sibling who was a perpetrator in a shooting. So he was someone who suffered from mental illness and had struggled, and also he was in recovery and had had a lot of things going on in his life. And when he was medicated and when he was sober, he was a great guy and made great decisions. But when he wasn't in that place, he did not. And so he was in the midst of a psychotic episode and he purchased a firearm, which you can do if you don't have a criminal record. And
Mm-hmm.
he sadly ended up shooting 3 people and he killed his next door neighbor. And then, so I became very involved with like the Colorado state legislature working on like an extreme risk protection order law here. It's kind of, people call them red flag laws, so that the police can intervene if someone's in that type of situation to take their firearms away from them. So I started out with that. And then 3 years later, in 2019, my 2 children were in a school shooting. So
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
so they were 9 and 11, and there were 2 high schoolers. It was a K-12 school, and there were 2 high schoolers that came in and shot 7 students, and one of them passed away. So
Okay.
yeah, so I went from being someone who was already sort of in the gun violence prevention world, but it was really based on that first story and like that one law that was going into effect in Colorado, to me becoming like almost a full-time activist for gun violence
Hmm.
prevention. And I also happen to live about 10 minutes from Columbine High School. And so a lot of the people that I connected with, especially after my children's school shooting, the Columbine community was very, very supportive after that shooting happened for my children's school shooting. And so that's how I met Amber and Amy and, a
Gotcha.
lot of the people within the Rebels Project.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, yeah.
Right.
But there's several of us that do have multiple stories like that. So you might have been thinking about me, but then also thinking of someone else.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I should have. I was a little too ignorant with this. When I
No,
was
no,
like,
I
I
mean,
got confused.
it's okay.
How long ago was it that your brother was a perpetrator?
So that was in April of 2016.
2016.
So,
Okay. Not,
so almost 9 years. And
gotcha.
yeah, and
Um,
yeah.
do you maybe, I don't know, maybe kind of start with his kind of mental health journey leading up to the shooting, and
Yes.
um, yeah, and then
Yeah,
maybe
sure.
talk about the victims a bit and why he chose
Yes.
them, or if it was just random, or
Yeah. So My brother, we grew up in Connecticut, and we had like a very, very idyllic, perfect childhood for the most part, as as perfect as it could be, I guess. We had great parents. We were the youngest of 5 kids, him and I. So we didn't grow up with an abuse situation or anything going on like that. It was just, we grew up in a very, very normal household. My brother, somewhere around his late teens to early 20s, I know that he was using a lot of drugs. He had started to use drugs and drink too much. And I noticed his demeanor and his personality kind of shift, where he would just get very irritable, very moody. Sometimes he would go out with his friends and he might get into a fight, things like that. So those were sort of like early signs that something was going on with him. But granted, this was in the late 80s to early 2000s, early 90s, when a lot of people, that was sort of like more of a normal part of social culture back then. And people didn't really talk about mental health as much as they do now. And so I just think that it was sort of brushed under the carpet in a lot of ways. He was a great athlete. He was an amazing hockey player. So, like, that was sort of his outlet. And then he, on his own, decided he had been dating a girl and they were very serious. And he kind of wanted to get away, I think, from the influences that he had in our hometown that were probably bad for him. So they decided to, he was offered a job out in Colorado in construction. And so he ended up taking a job out there and they moved out there. And I would say for many years, they had like the most amazing new life for themselves. I think that he started to make better choices. He started his own company. They got married. They started having kids. But there was always like something there. There were days when he was really off. I can only speak from my own personal experience with him. And then over the years, he started saying things like, he started talking about how he had PTSD. And I really didn't know what he was talking about, because I'm like, PTSD from what? Like, we had like a great childhood. Like, what the heck is he talking about? Like, I don't know. And then, I always suspected that maybe he had something like bipolar disorder, but he didn't share. So, anyway, flash forward to 2015. So this was the year, not even a year before the shooting ended up happening. I flew home. I had watched my brother like really, really go up and down over the years with his drug use, his alcoholism, and his mental instability, for lack of a better definite like explanation. Description is what I meant. So it was July of 2015. We went back to Connecticut for my dad's 75th birthday. He and his family were there. Me and my family were there. And one of the days, my mom was like, "Oh, well, we're taking family pictures today, but we can't do them till the afternoon. We were supposed to do them." And I was like, "Why?" And she's like, "Well," she's like, "your brother has to go talk to somebody." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" And I could tell she was sort of hesitant to tell me, but she just did. She said, your brother has to give some testimony in a court case. And I was like, "About what?" And she's like, "Apparently when he was in elementary school, she's like, he was sexually molested by a teacher." And
See.
she's like, yeah. So it was all of a sudden like, I was like, "What?" I was like, "Did you know this?" She's like, "No, we never knew anything." She's like, all of a sudden, I guess he had been called by some friends that remembered him spending time with this teacher, and other people have been coming forward that were assaulted by this man.
So
So
this
they
is
reached out.
was it like a civil case or was it a civic?
So
What's the word I'm looking for?
yeah, so like basically the way that it worked in the early 80s when the crime occurred, there was a 5-year limit of statute of limitations. So apparently they couldn't ever go after the perpetrator, but there was a lot of negligence they felt with the school. And so what they did was they filed a lawsuit against the Board of Education
Gotcha.
in the
Okay.
hometown and the old principal, or, because a lot of people were saying like kids were being called out of class to go spend time alone with this person. And, a lot of the kids said that they had suspicions that something was off about him. And I guess it happened to a lot of the boys there. So my family never knew. And my mom said, she remembered him staying after school with this teacher. And she's like, your brother had severe learning disabilities. He had ADHD, but he was great with sports. And I was just so glad this teacher was taking an interest in him,
Hmm.
and so,
Hmm.
which,
Your poor mom.
I know just breaks her heart. It just broke her heart because now we know about people in a position of trust and how that happens. Back then, you never would suspect the teacher or the person in the position of trust. It was like the stranger danger, the guy on the street, like coming in from the
Yeah. Don't
projects, or coming
don't
in
take candy from a stranger. Yeah.
right, bringing you
Yeah.
candy or offering you drugs to get in their van or something. So
Yeah.
anyway, so he, this had happened to him, and he had to give this testimony in this case. And looking
Oh,
back,
which would be like opening up a wound that you. Ugh. Oh, I
yes,
can't even imagine. Yeah.
yes. So when I look back, hindsight 2020, what I see is when he was telling me all those years, oh, I have PTSD, this is what he was referring to. But he never
Hmm.
told us what it was about. And he had also, I know he was taking antipsychotic medication toward the end and antidepressants and things. And I just don't think he was taking them well. But after that testimony happened, I think that he really, really went on a downward spiral. In fact, I know he did. Suddenly, his wife later said that for the months before the shooting, he wasn't working and that he was just laying in bed all day, and they were fighting a lot, and like just, and I look back and I think like he was one of those people that got up at like 5 a.m. and would be out like mowing the lawn. Like he just,
Oh, it's one
even
of those neighbors.
he's one of those people. Like he was, yes, totally. Like just like he always was an early riser and someone who just he always had to be doing something physically, like up, moving around. That's why he was great
Mm-hmm.
with construction. He wasn't like someone who laid in bed all day. So I knew something was wrong, but there's just all these things that happen where you just to his wife's, she was trying to handle the situation privately,
Mm-hmm.
and she wasn't reaching out to my parents or anything. I think because she was hoping that he would get through it and she didn't want to shame and embarrass him. So all these things happened. So anyway, leading up to the week of the shooting, I had spent Easter with him the Sunday before.
Actually, one
And
question.
yeah,
Um, had they won their case, or did they like?
yes, they did.
Oh, okay, okay,
Now, the case was actually still going on when the shooting happened.
okay,
So
okay.
they hadn't finished it. Ultimately, they did. One of the big, terrible results of that is because my brother committed this crime and was incarcerated when uh, when they finalized that case, he could not be part of that case anymore. So
Oh
other
man.
victims received, money and compensation, and validation, but he was not able to
Hmm.
be part of it because of
Right.
what he did. Now, I mean, in the none of us could really care. We couldn't care less at this point. It's just we're
Hmm.
more. I was mostly mad that there was the 5 year limit of statute of limitations. I don't know why I keep saying that backwards, but I would have loved to see that perpetrator go to jail. That would have
Right.
been the
Yeah.
ultimate like justice in my mind. Nobody could have cared, about the money or whatever it was, but that
Right.
did it. We kind of felt that was sad because after the situation happened, then his children could, that could have helped them. had they
Right.
been able to. Anyway, but
Like his perpetrator's children or your
no,
brother's children?
his children, his own children. So my brother had 3 kids.
Gotcha. Okay.
And when this happened, when the case was finalized, they did distribute, like, it was like a $5 million case or something. And a lot of the victims received compensation. But because he had to be removed, his family did not benefit from that, which,
Gotcha. Okay.
given what happened later, I think it would have been nice for them to have been able to get compensation. Anyway,
Yeah.
so the week before the shooting, he started.
This is the Easter now?
Yes. So I saw him on Easter, March 27th, 2016, to be specific. And we had Easter Sunday at his house. The whole day, we had a really nice time with his family. My family was there and his family, but I knew something wasn't right with him. He was going off on tangents. He was speaking really, really fast, like kind of like, and I remember going home that day and telling my mom, she said, well, how was he? And I said, well, we had a really nice time, but he seemed kind of manic.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, well, okay, your dad and I are going to call, like, we'll call him and we'll check in. And I said, okay. And unbeknownst to me, my parents had called him a couple days later and spoke to him. And I guess he got really mad and he yelled at them and he hung up the phone on them. And then he had another encounter with like another family member, and he walked out of his AA meeting that week. He was acting very, very unwell.
Mm-hmm.
And so the day of the shooting, the day before, I should say, his wife had started reaching out to family members. She reached out to one of my other brothers. She reached out to her best friend, her dad. She had been talking to people on the phone saying, something's very wrong with him. I think we need to get him some help. And she kept thinking that she would have. Yes. So yeah.
Sorry,
so
his wife.
Yeah, she was trying to get help the day before, but they kept saying,
for him? Or for her?
For him.
I see.
Yeah. So she was trying to get him to go to the hospital with her, is what it was. So.
I see. Like professional help, not just family.
Oh yes, yeah. No,
Gotcha.
she wanted, because honestly, so my brother and I are the only 2 people in our family who live in Colorado. Everyone else is like 2,000 miles away. So she was calling them, but they couldn't be there. Otherwise, they would have come right over and helped. And she didn't want to bother her neighbors and feel comfortable sharing like So
Mm-hmm.
anyway, so the next morning, she was on the phone with my other brother, and he said, I really wouldn't go back into the house. She had dropped her daughter at school. She said he was acting very strange. And he said, I wouldn't go back in the house. But she said that she got there and she saw like one of her neighbors outside, like gardening. And she figured, well, if something happened, at least I can have her come help me or something. And I'm just going to go inside one last time to see if he'll come to the hospital with me. And she said she went inside the house. She was calling his name and she's like, come on, I really think, just get in the car. Like, let's just go, And she said he came upstairs around the corner and he had a gun. And he was just walking right towards her with like a crazy look in his eyes. And
was it a pistol or a rifle?
It was a handgun. Yeah.
Okay.
So a little pistol. And he was just walking right towards her. So she turned and walked really fast out of the house. She said she was just in shock. Like, she didn't know that he had a gun. Like, she didn't know. I mean, she was just in shock. So she said she walked out the front door and then just started running across the street towards the neighbor's house who was gardening. And I guess he came right to the front door and just started shooting the gun. And he ended up shooting my sister-in-law in the back. And the neighbor across the street, like a bullet grazed her face. And she was able to like
Jesus.
crawl and like around her house and get in the back of her house. So my sister-in-law is laying there um, on the neighbor's porch, just, having been shot. And he was just he came out into the middle of the road, firing the gun just at random all over the place. He was screaming and yelling. Nothing that he was saying made really any sense at all. He was talking that he was from the Bible and he was, he was on some mission from God and people were devils and just stuff that was completely crazy. And their next door neighbor heard the shots being fired. And I assume he saw my sister in law laying at the house across the street on the porch, and he was a doctor. So
Hmm.
he ran right out of his house to go help her. And he grabbed my brother he had been just like running around and went back into his backyard and stuff for a minute. So the guy grabbed my sister-in-law's phone because she was on the phone with 911, but she couldn't talk because the bullet had gone through her lung. So she couldn't enunciate the address. And so the next door neighbor, who was the doctor, picked up the phone, was trying to tell 911 where to come. He was trying to help my sister-in-law. And all of a sudden, the person on the 911 call said he got kind of quiet, the man. And he said, where is the man now with the gun? And he said, he's coming right at me with the gun. And you just hear gunshots and then nothing. And
Yeah.
he shot and killed that man. And strangely, he didn't go back and kill my sister-in-law. She just was laying there. He kind of went off back into the street. At this point, the police were coming. And so when the police arrived, he had gone back in the back of his house and he started firing the gun at the police at first. And then, for some reason, he said, "I'm putting the gun down, officer." And he put the gun down and they arrested him. And it was just the most unbelievable situation. Like I still, even when I tell the story, I've told the story a million times, it still just does not seem like it possibly could have happened. It's the most unbelievable
Yeah.
situation. And nothing I ever could have in my wildest of dreams ever have imagined happening.
So you said 3 people ended up dying that day?
So I won't say thankfully it was just one, but it was just one. It was the doctor.
Oh,
My
okay.
sister-in-law did not die, and neither did the
Right.
other neighbor who had her cheek grazed.
Oh, I think you said 3 people were shot. And
Yes,
one
3 people
died.
were
Oh,
shot,
gotcha.
but one of them was
The
killed.
doctor.
And thankfully for my sister-in-law, thankfully is okay, and the bullet went right through her. They said that it was, the way that it happened was like a way that was good, that she wouldn't, obviously her life was totally put at risk, but if you're going to be shot, they were saying the way that the bullet went through her,
best possible scenario
yes,
of being shot.
yeah, exactly. She was, we knew from day one that she would survive, and
Right.
that, so she, and, which thank goodness for a million reasons, but particularly because they had 3 children and she needed to be there to take care of them.
Wow. So
yeah.
So he ended up getting arrested. When you think of mass shooters, quite often they take their own life, or they are hoping the police will do it.
Yes.
So
I think in his mind, he told me later that he thought that when he first was firing at the police, when he first saw them, he was firing at them and he didn't know who they were because they were on the other side of a fence. But once they said, "Police, drop your gun, drop your weapon," or whatever, he said that he thought that they were on the same side as him. Like they were
okay.
he was
the good guy.
Yes, totally. Like that's in his mind. he was so confused that he didn't even recognize that he was the bad guy, you know. And
Yeah.
yeah, so he is
Has
serving
he
life in
been?
he's serving life in prison. So
He is. Has he
yeah.
been diagnosed with anything, or does he like take
So
regular meds now, or?
yes. So that's the other thing that really, really sucks about the whole situation is that like once he was in prison, first of
He got good
all,
health care?
yeah, like he
Ah,
suddenly, well, he was being properly medicated for the first time. You know, I mean, he had been medicated before that, but that's so I'm sure it's hard to understand as a Canadian when you guys have like way different healthcare than we do. But like here, even if you're like, I always say, like, he was like this white, affluent guy who had his own business. I mean, he made good money. You'd think he would have been able to afford great healthcare, but he was self employed. And so he paid a lot of money for the bare bones policy that him and his family had. And he did try to go to the hospital once and asked for help. And they asked him, they said, well, are you wanting to hurt someone right now? And he said, no. And he said, well, are you trying to do you want to kill yourself today? And he said no. And they said, well, I'm sorry, we can't admit you. But he was hearing voices.
yeah.
So, you know, there's such a problem with our healthcare system here as well. I mean, you can't just get help. It's so, and it's here in the United States. I mean, you can go get a gun in 20 minutes, but if you want to
Hmm.
see a therapist, you might need to wait 3 to 6 months
For a therapist,
for a therapist. Yes,
even a private.
like even with private insurance, because you have to wait till that person has an opening and you have to hope that they're even taking new patients. So
Good God.
yeah,
I mean, I had like a year long wait list to see a psychiatrist, but I mean, therapists are
yeah,
pretty much plentiful here.
right,
Some of them you do have to pay privately. Some of them under insurance. Some of them are under the health care or whatever, but or health region or whatever.
yeah,
But yeah,
I
wow.
know. Yes, it's
And to be honest, I went to the hospital once, suicidal, and they basically told me to go home too. But
they did
a lot has changed
right.
around here since that, because
Yes,
that was about 12 years ago or something. But
right.
I mean, ish.
That's kind of how it is here too. I would say that things have gotten better. That was almost 9 years ago, but it's like crazy to think that just 9 years ago it was so bad, like, and
Yeah.
it's better, but it's still not where it should be. I mean, I always think like we have all these little ers that pop up like on every corner out here now,
Mm,
and I'm like, why can't we have a mental health clinic in every one of those ers? I don't understand, like, I don't know, it's
yeah.
just if people want to prevent violence in so many ways, like, and I'm talking about even suicidal, you know, violence towards yourself, you
Hmm.
know, when you have a mental health, you know, difficulty, like I suffer from depression and anxiety. So if I don't take my medication and I don't do the things that I need to do, then that affects every asset of my life. You
Hmm.
know, like it
100%.
affects your
Yeah.
relationships, it reflects your job, it reflects everything. So
Yeah.
why is it not a priority? I don't know. It's hard to understand.
It is. And I had a friend who's a nurse. She commented, like, if you go to the ER with a broken arm, you you see somebody, they
Yes.
don't say, well, come back when you have two broken arms. That's when it gets really bad.
Right.
It's like, I'm asking for help right now. Like, I'm a middle-aged
Right.
man who
Right.
knows when something's wrong with my brain.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
I'm not, this isn't like I'm here every other day,
Right.
like
And even if
milking the system or something.
I
Like,
know, I know. And that's the thing that drives me crazy. It's like you said, if you had a broken arm, you'd go in, they'd fix your broken arm right away.
hmm.
They should do the same thing if somebody, especially if someone themselves is coming and saying, I need help, you know,
Hmm.
because usually when someone gets to that point, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, yeah. And and luckily for me, so about a year after they did say, you're fine. I did come back, but this time I was like handcuffed in a gurney, and it was a suicide attempt.
Yeah.
And I actually did get my firearms taken away.
Yeah.
I'm Canadian. I had guns. It was like,
Yeah.
rifle. I like hunting
Yeah.
rifles and stuff. And
Totally.
I wasn't like a big hunter or anything. It was just a thing. It was in the culture of my family and stuff.
Right. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, and they took my I can't remember what it's called. My little piece of paper saying that I can have a gun
Right.
away, and I've never got back. I was like, well, like why do I need guns in the house anyway?
Right.
Um,
That's one
so
thing that's interesting because I've wondered about that. Like, um, I think that is pretty common. I think when people do get to the point where their firearms are taken away, it's usually in a serious crisis. And most of those people, I mean, we have so many like people here who are like, it's an infringement on their rights. Like, you need to give the guns back. They should get them back. They shouldn't have them taken away. And I'm like, well, but that person might kill somebody or themselves. And it's just a safety precaution. And here you can petition to get them back. I mean, it's not like they.
same. I could have done
Yeah.
the same thing. I just didn't bother. I was
Yeah.
like, pfft.
I think like a lot of reasonable people who've been through some sort of crisis, that is the conclusion they come to. Like, I don't really need them in my house. Like, maybe it's better for me because if I am in a situation again like that, like, I don't want to have easy access to a gun, you know? So I don't own firearms, and that is part of the reason why. I mean, I don't feel that I need one in my home.
Yeah, right.
So.
I talked to a lady a while ago. Her name's Katrina Breeze.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know that name.
No. Mm-mm.
Oh, okay. She's her mother was mentally ill and was able to walk into a gun store and get a gun, and then she promptly walked out and stood in a park and took her life. And so I can't think of the law she's come up with. It's her mom's name, but basically saying having voluntary lists, like, I'm not well,
Yes.
do not sell me a gun.
Yeah.
And my name is on this list. It's not infringement on anyone's rights because
Right.
you're voluntarily saying,
Yes.
giving this up. And there's been quite a few states now that have
Is her name
adopted.
Was the mother Donna?
Yes.
It was
that's right.
okay.
Donna's
Yes.
law. Donna's law.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's so funny because I didn't know the daughter's name. But
Gotcha.
we actually are looking to pass Donna's law here in Colorado this year. So we are actually
Amazing.
working on that. Yes. And until you just shared the story, I didn't connect the dots. But yes,
Yeah.
we are. It's just like people can voluntarily say, I've suffered from a mental health crisis before, and I don't think it would be good for me to be able to easily buy a gun. So just put my name on this do not sell list.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's a great law. I mean, like you said, it's not infringing on anyone's rights. It's someone voluntarily doing it. And I frankly believe, so my brother had maybe about 8 or 9 years, maybe it wasn't that long before, but it doesn't really matter. But a few years before the shooting, he had guns that he voluntarily got rid of because of his mental health struggles and him thinking, I probably should not own these guns. I remember he had done something where like he showed someone at his house his gun at like a party or something, and him and his wife decided that it wasn't a great idea. He had been drinking, and so this was when he had not been sober, and so they decided together that it would be good for him not to own guns, and he never did until the shooting. And when he bought the gun maybe 10 days before the shooting or so, and he had already like he had run out of one of his meds is what happened. And he was taking another one of them to like compensate, and like they went on vacation and he didn't get it filled. It was like a whole thing, but his medications got all screwy and he started getting super paranoid and bought a gun during that period. So he's somebody who I think when he got rid of his guns that first time, had the option to fill out a form like that, I think he would have.
Right. Yeah.
And we wouldn't be here.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about having a gun in the house being easy access, but if you don't have a gun, it's like going to the grocery store to get eggs sometimes. If you can just,
Yeah.
I mean, that's still pretty convenient.
Yes.
know?
Yeah, totally. Even if you don't have them in the house, it's, yeah. And like some states, it depends on what state you live in. Like Colorado used to have very loose gun laws, but sadly,
Mhm.
we've had so many mass shootings here. We had Columbine, we had the Boulder King Supers, we had Club Q, we had the Aurora movie theater. I mean, we've had some of the
Mhm.
worst in the United States in the state. So since then, we now have passed a lot of gun safety legislation, and
Mm.
I think it's definitely helping. Like we now, up until like 2 years ago, like there wasn't, you could get a long gun still at 18 without a waiting period or any of that. You just walk in as an 18-year-old and just buy a AR-15. So
Mm.
now you have to
Mhm.
wait 3 days and you have to be 21. So
Gotcha. Okay.
yeah.
I was gonna say you can buy a gun. You can even join the military and
Yeah.
stuff, but you can't legally have a glass of wine with supper.
No, I know. Well, that's the thing. I know it's some of the laws. That comes up a lot. Like when we are at the Capitol, like talking about bills, people say, "Well, you can serve in the military at 18, or you can do this," and but a lot of people are like, "Yeah, but that law." To be fair, I personally don't think that 18-year-olds should be able to sign up for the military now. Now I
Right.
think maybe we should make it 21, because your brain isn't fully developed, and we know a lot more about people's brains and the way that people develop. We know so much more than when they made that 18.
Yeah.
We had the law to make it 18. So we're
Or
trying we're supposed to get better with time and with research and with
yeah.
not just say, well, this is the way it was 200 years ago, so we still need to stick with that.
Yeah. Or if you are going to have 18-year-olds join the military, then have a phenomenal mental health system for them
Yes,
to take
absolutely.
advantage of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I always feel like, okay, if you've been in the military, then yeah, like I feel differently about your ability to understand and operate firearms than just some Joe Schmo down the street who really
It's
doesn't,
almost scarier in a
yeah,
way.
who hasn't been trained. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Do you
yeah,
think owning a gun is should be a privilege, not a right?
I do. I used
Yeah.
to I used to be someone who was, I mean, the Constitution and law means so much to me. And I always used to feel like, well, it should be a right, but we just need to have some safety precautions put in place. But at this point, I do
Yeah.
feel like it should be a privilege and not a right, because look, I mean, we lose like 45,000 people a year in the United States to guns.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of lives.
I mean, 200 years ago, yeah, you have the right to have a musket
Yeah,
or whatever it
right.
is, but
Yes.
to be able to own 50 AR-5, whatever,
Yeah,
whatever the hell.
AR-15s or
Yeah.
AK-47s, like if they're, I mean, and they
Yeah.
even have guns like that people can get here pretty easily. That maybe that's a stretch. I shouldn't say pretty easily, but you can get them where they're modified, and they are like a full-on machine gun. We have
Hmm.
bump stocks
Right.
that turn semi-automatics into fully automatic weapons. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense for just anybody to be able to buy one of those.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm trying to watch my P's and Q's up a little bit,
I
but
understand. No, I
but it,
mean,
but
because
also
yeah, yeah,
a lot of the guns that are in Canada are that are criminally owned. They're smuggled from the states. Same
right.
with
They
Mexico. A
come
lot
in
of
from the United States. I know.
yeah,
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 we have. I know, like with the whole political situation that's going on right now, both Canada and Mexico, if you were to watch the news out here, more of the conservative news, they talk about fentanyl coming in from these countries. And I mean, Canada's like, I don't know, like less than 1% of the fentanyl that we have is from Canada. But however, they don't ever bring up the fact that almost all the illegal guns in both of the countries come from the United States, and that we
Hmm.
pretty much armed the Mexican cartel.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
We did. I mean, the
Yeah.
United States is responsible for that. And that is part of the reason that we have such an immigration issue now, is because all of these firearms have gone across the border into Mexico, armed the cartel, made them 100 times more dangerous, and they have taken over. I mean, Acapulco, when I was a kid, was like the premier destination for like the celebrities to go out. You'd never, like, nobody would go to Acapulco now. I mean, it's completely taken over. That whole area is taken over by the cartel.
Hmm.
It's very sad.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Yeah, it
So
is.
yeah,
Um, so now I guess,
yeah,
um, um, yeah, I have so many questions because I mean, just having a family member that's gone through this and is alive and well, but in prison, I
hmm,
mean, that's a whole
yeah,
episode on its own.
yes,
But you also have had your children in a school shooting now.
yes,
It, can you,
yeah.
I don't know, maybe shed
So
some light on that?
yes, so in that situation, again, mental health was a contributing factor. They were two students from the school. One of
Two.
the students was trans, and the other student had just learned that he wasn't going to be able to graduate because he had failed a class. And they were very good.
This is okay. This is
Yeah.
so weird already because it's very uncommon to have two shooters,
Mm-hmm.
and to
Yeah.
be in Colorado where like Columbine
Columbine.
happened with
I
two,
know,
and
with two
now this
shooters.
again.
I know.
Weird.
It was kind of creepy because so in the Columbine shooting, two shooters, which is unusual, and their names were Dylan and Eric. And then our shooters, two shooters, Devin and Alec. So
Good
they almost even
Lord.
have like the same names. It's really weird. So
Sorry.
yeah, I know, very weird. It's but mental health was definitely a contributing factor. I mean, the older one, who was Devin, he had some, a lot of struggles within his family and had suffered from depression and had a lot going on. And then the other student, I mean, came from a situation where there was a lot of dysfunction in the home life, and the mom had been 15 when she had him, and she was sort of living out her teens and 20s while she had a bunch of kids and not really
Hmm.
taking care of them all the time. And this poor kid was sort of responsible for all the younger siblings and just trying to make it through school and life and everything else. And so basically they got together and both were having a really difficult time individually, and decided that this is what they were going to do. They were going to come in and they were going to terrorize the specific classroom of kids who they felt had targeted them with bullying or whatever else. And um, I mean, there's a lot more to the story than just that, obviously, but that's sort of the gist of it. And so they brought a bunch of guns in a guitar case, and they went into the classroom, and one of the shooters, there were two doors to the classroom. One of the shooters came in the back door and held up a gun and said, "Nobody move," and was standing in front of the doorway. The other kid came in the other door with the gun and started firing at them. So they were
Good
trapped in
God.
the classroom, and a couple of the students attacked the boy who had the gun in the back of the classroom, and they took him down. And
Wow.
but sadly, one of the boys who did that was shot right in the chest and was killed.
Right.
3 days before his high school graduation, this poor kid. And then my kids were upstairs in the school, and they were just hiding in classrooms. And that also that was a terrifying experience. My older one, hiding for 45 minutes, knowing what's knowing that there's someone out there with a gun in their school. She's 11 years old. They had like the lockdown recording going on and on and on. And then the SWAT team came in and had guns pointed at them in their full tactical gear, screaming at them to put their hands on their heads. I mean, it was just, you just can't believe that this is happening, like in the United States, like that this is just a reality that kids here are living with every day. And my younger kiddo, he was 9. I think that he was young enough, and he has kind of like just a funny personality and doesn't take things a whole lot very seriously. In some ways, I don't know if he was maybe too young to really be impacted. Maybe I think that when he gets older, and maybe if he has his own children someday and he has to send them to school one day, that might change. You know, but the older one, I mean, it's been a rough road. I saw the experience change her, and it certainly changed me.
And what year was that?
It certainly changed me.
Oh no, I said, and what year did that shooting take
That
place?
happened in 2019. It was the STEM School Highlands Ranch, and May 7th, 2019. So yeah.
So how did it affect your daughter?
So I mean, she was always like a quiet and introverted kid, but she loved school. You know, she really loved going, and she felt safe there. And she actually chose to stay at the school. Both of my kids did. My son is still at the same school. I think because they had this very supportive community around them after that happened. And then they were with friends that all had gone through that with them and understood. But she definitely, I think her whole sense of safety just changed after that. The next year when they had their first lockdown drill, she was very afraid.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm of the, like, it just boggles my mind that these things even have to be practiced. Like, when I grew up, it was fire. That was it.
Yeah, the fire
we
drill.
would practice fire drill. That was it.
We had the fire drill. That was it. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, my parents talk about they would have bombing.
Yes.
Like nuclear bomb
hide under their
threats.
desk to be protected from the nuclear bomb.
Yeah. And now our children, it's just random shooters walking around shooting everyone in your school.
At your school. I know.
Fuck.
It's just it's just not the way it should be. It's not. And I think that just so many Americans just don't understand that it can be so different, that they're aware that other countries don't have this type of epidemic.
No other country.
Right. No other country. But it's almost like they just live in a place in their minds where they've never seen that directly, or they have false information about it, or they've just been conditioned to think that everyone should have a gun at every moment of the day. I mean, that's literally what they will say, that everybody should have a gun.
Oh, I know. They were talking about arming teachers.
Yes.
And a good guy with a gun will get the bad guy with the gun. And
right. Yes.
As a Canadian, it's like we often just like we're speechless.
Yes.
Our mouths are just open. Like,
when you have 7 people pulling out a gun in a public place, I mean, how do you know who the bad guy is? I don't know. I mean, who are, and
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I know.
So how many people died in the school shooting?
So one died. But there were 9 students that were shot total. 7 of the students were shot by the 2 teenagers. Believe it or not, and this is terrible, but the security guard who came in to apprehend the shooter, the police department had come around the corner with a gun, and he fired 2 rounds, and he shot 2 students that were hiding in classrooms. Yeah.
So the security guard accidentally shot
2 people. Yes. And
this is why everyone needs a gun.
Right. Exactly. This, and that person did, same person apprehended the shooter, one of them, but he didn't shoot him. He shot two kids hiding in classrooms, like through the walls. Like one, and
Wow.
thankfully nobody was seriously injured. It was like a student was shot in the foot and another one in like the side of the leg, but they were okay.
Still.
But still,
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
you imagine being a kid hiding in a classroom and a bullet comes through a wall and hits you? I mean, I just, it's just so beyond comprehension.
Oh my God.
Like how this
Yeah.
makes sense to people. I don't know.
It's like as a culture, you constantly have PTSD.
Yes.
Because I mean, so that's
Yes.
one kid killed, 7 shot. They'll have PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like your daughter, anyone that was
There
in
was
that building,
1,800 kids in that school,
oof,
kindergarten through 12th grade. Maybe some of the kindergartens, first, second graders, maybe they were like ignorant enough or young enough to maybe not be impacted. But I know that there were kids in third grade and up who still to this day really struggle. And we have lost, since that happened, I think we've lost 3 students who had survived that day to suicide.
Right.
Because
Damn.
the residual effects of an event like that, and then you go out, it's like somebody who goes into the military and comes home. All of a sudden being with people who have no experience with PTSD, and you're in this like normal world where like people are worried about stupid shit that really doesn't matter. Like you feel like an alien, like your brain has totally changed. So for these kids, they go through this traumatic event and then they go, say, off to college, or they go to a different high school, or they go into the workforce, and suddenly they're with people that have no concept of trauma.
Right.
They feel very isolated because of that. And that leads to, you know, serious depression, anxiety, PTSD, suicide.
Resentment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Well, at this rate, everyone will be able to relate.
yes.
It seems like,
Yes.
you know, I don't mean to laugh, but you know what I mean?
I know.
It's just,
It's because what else can you do? I mean, it's just a fact. If you're not affected already, you will be eventually, because it's not, I mean,
well, look at your case. And it doesn't sound like you're completely, it's not completely uncommon that there's someone a loved one is a perpetrator and a loved one is also a victim.
Yes.
Of 2 separate circumstances.
And I you know, within the gun violence community, we have more and more people that are affected more than once. I mean, we're having kids that survive a school shooting and then they go to college and then they survived a shooting at their college. And,
oh my God,
people that survived the Las Vegas shooting went home to California and then were killed in the Thousand Oaks bar shooting 6 months later. I mean, it's starting to become to the point where people are, it's not uncommon to be affected more than once. And it's I don't know, it's such a problem. But you know, when I think of it, yes, we need to do something about gun safety, but mental health also is a huge component. It doesn't mean that most people that are mentally ill will ever shoot someone or harm someone. They're more likely to be a victim of a crime than to perpetrate a crime. But that doesn't mean when people do shoot people, chances are there's something going on with them. You know, it might just, they might not have a mental illness, but they usually are in some sort of crisis. They've lost their job. They're going through a divorce. They've lost custody of their kids. There's something going on. They're struggling with addiction, alcoholism. I mean, whatever it is, there's something going on where maybe that person, if there were more resources and access to mental health services, that we could help prevent a lot of these tragedies.
Yeah. That's the biggest problem is it's so complex, and I mean, there's no one thing you can do that will fix everything.
Right.
It's really complex.
Yes.
And now, you know, you have what is it, like 500 million guns in the U.S. right
Mhm.
now?
Yeah, more
Just
guns than people.
floating around.
Yep, more
So,
guns than people. Yeah,
so now you really have to think outside the box, because it's like, okay, we can't just take guns away because
right. There's so
they're
many
out
out
there
there.
now.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
I know it's a very complex problem, and just like everything else, it's sadly it's been so politicized. And same with mental health, it's been so politicized that anytime you start to move towards some sort of solution, there's these other group of people that come and tear it apart and
Mm-hmm.
make it so we can't move forward. But people need to stop. I mean, that I could talk about that politics all day, as far as like,
Yeah.
special interest groups like get into these politicians' pockets, and they're, if political people could not take money from special interest groups, and people could actually just as real people work on some of these issues, we could get so much farther. But
Yeah.
will that ever happen? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, not for at least 4 years.
Yes, yes, that's for sure. Yes, no, Donald Trump has made it very clear that he is going to try to undo everything, any progress that Joe Biden did as far as gun laws. So,
Too, it's like,
oh
okay,
yeah,
well, here's all the stats and all the research and everything, and it's no, that's morally incorrect. I'm like, uh, what are you talking about? Like,
right,
it's not a moral issue. It's not a political issue. This is how to. This
yeah,
is literally how we should move forward.
right.
The research has been done.
The research has been done, and how about people who've actually lived it be the ones who have an opinion about it?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I
Like,
mean,
ideology does not factor in.
no. I
Like,
mean, it's the same.
obviously, it's not working. Whatever
Right,
you're
whatever.
trying.
Yes, yes. Trying to put people in who have opinions but have never had real life experience with these issues, trying to solve them doesn't make any sense. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
but yeah,
I'm curious. Have you ever had homicidal thoughts?
no, I have not. And
Really? So,
no, what's interesting is that, first of all, I'm actually adopted, so I'm not biologically related to my brother. But even if I don't necessarily even think that like anyone else in my family has those types of thoughts either. But
hmm,
I am like sort of like the opposite extreme, like where like I feel guilty when I kill a fly.
right.
I'm a
Well, I mean,
vegetarian who like, watches like videos about pigs all day and then like cries because people eat bacon. Like that's like me. Like it's really to the point that I just laugh at myself because I know it's a little ridiculous. I don't like, and everyone in my family eats meat aside from me, and but I just but no, I am always like someone who's trying to root for the underdog and trying to, I would rather, I see solutions in, I don't think that punishing people is how we get to solutions. I do think there are people who do need to be punished, to be clear, but I do think
mhm,
like the criminal justice system, for instance, now what my brother did, he killed somebody. He's going to probably die in prison one day, and I accept that. Do I think that in 15, 20 years he would still be a danger to society? No, I don't. But
mhm,
that's the way it is.
yeah.
But when I look
Well,
at,
that's sorry. I was actually going to ask that earlier, and I
yeah,
forgot. But I mean, he was clearly mentally unwell, but
yeah,
that's not like they didn't take that into factor, I'm guessing, in
no,
the lawsuit or
nope.
in, yeah.
Because he had intentionally mistaken his medication, that
Mhm,
disqualified him for any sort of insanity plea.
I see.
The laws can be very, very strange and have ridiculous things behind them. But
Yeah.
in his case, I can understand. He was 46 years old. I mean, what are we going to do with someone in that situation? I mean, even if he got 40 years, he'd be in his 80s. I don't know. But when it
Hmm.
comes to on the other side of the coin, with my kids, the shooters at their school, They
Yes.
were 16 and 18 years old.
Right.
Both of them got life. The younger one got with parole because they were a minor. The older one had just turned 18, so got automatic life without parole. I personally do not think that that is an appropriate sentence. I know that they killed somebody, but we're talking about an 18-year-old who I personally think if I'm just saying I think they should have the possibility of parole. Not that they definitely get parole.
You
But
bleeding heart liberal.
I know. But that's the thing. I just feel though, but what if he came out of prison at 35 or 40 years old and started speaking at high schools and
I
talking?
interviewed someone that did that.
Yes. There are people that have done that. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a former school shooter who's
You
now
know someone who
trying to-
did that?
Yeah, he was on the podcast.
He was. Yeah.
a school shooter who now goes around talking to police and talking to
Right.
students and stuff. He spent, I want to say 15 or 20 years in prison. And he also works with a woman named Scarlett. I can't think of her last name, but she has the Choose Love movement.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And her kid was killed in the one where
Sandy Hook?
Alec. Yes, in Sandy Hook. Yeah.
Sandy Hook. Yeah.
They kind of like they're friends and they work
Right.
together now and
Yeah.
stuff. And it's like, it's this is a kid who's going through mental health issues. Again, brain's not even fully developed.
Right.
I mean,
right. But
yeah,
you think of how much good that guy does. Like that person still has a purpose. That person is still contributing to society, and that person is still helping to prevent this happening to other people. Isn't that a better outcome than just saying this 18-year-old committed this crime, no ifs, ands, or buts about it, no matter how good they do in prison, no matter how much they try to rehabilitate themselves or educate themselves, sorry, they're just going to be in prison till the day they die. I mean, I don't think that makes sense. I think that now people will say, but how could you say that you want them to get out? I mean, they're just going to get, listen, I'm not saying I want them to get out. I'm saying I want there to be a possibility that they can get out if they do a lot of good and if they commit to doing good when they're released.
Yeah. Could you imagine?
I mean,
like not just isolating them forever, but actually like having them reintegrate into society and making society better.
And that's the thing. I really think that there is a potential for people to do that. So I don't know. I mean, yeah. So when people say, do you have homicidal, have you had that? Or I've never attempted suicide, but I have had suicidal ideation. I did struggle very much with depression as a teenager and anxiety. And that's another reason I probably have compassion and empathy, because I remember what a tough time that was in life to go through.
I've had homicidal thoughts. I mean, it's not like
I know.
common thing.
Yeah,
especially like when I was a kid.
Most
especially
people
when I was
probably do at some point or another. They don't act on them, but
especially when I was like 16, 18 years old.
Yes.
You know, the bully at school or the or a boss that was like, I mean, I've had a lot of bosses, but there's been a couple that were like,
really terrible.
Like, you like literally, I'm curling up in bed, like having fantasies about it.
Right.
Again, not acting on them or even considering acting on them, but
I get it. Yeah, no, I totally get it. Whereas I'm more of like somebody who would probably turn that more on myself. Like so I think that, and
I've had that too.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing though. It is actually a normal human thing to go through severe struggles and to have thoughts and feelings and to go that it can be really extreme and to go through a crisis where you might do something that is catastrophic. And, it doesn't mean, and the reason I speak so much about my brother is because most people with a perpetrator in the family don't talk about it. because there's so much shame and stigma attached to it. And I think the other thing is people worry that you're trying to have too much compassion for a killer, or you know what I mean? Like people look at it as, well, who cares? This person is just a terrible person that did this thing. And so screw them. Why should we give them any time or attention? And I get that. But at the same time, if we don't stop and recognize that, I think people want there to be an easy answer, is what it is. They want to say, this person killed someone. This person did this horrible thing. Therefore, they are an evil person. They never were a good person. And screw them. We don't deserve that. Only people that are evil do stuff like that. When the reality is, these are regular, ordinary people. This could be your son. This could be your brother. This could be your uncle. This could be your mom. It could be someone you know that you would never think would do something horrible. You know, sometimes people go through something really terrible. And I think that we need to really get to the root causes of how these things transpire to get to that end point and try to prevent it way beforehand.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, when you think of like how desperate someone must be to be in that mindset, like, so lack of services, lack of validation, feeling stuck, backed into a corner like a dog with its teeth out, who's asking for help, doesn't get it, and then easy access to firearms. And yeah, it's no wonder extremism happens.
Yes.
I mean, extremism happens here in Canada, but again, we also don't have the access to 500 million guns, or 20 minutes can buy a pistol. Like, and I'm not saying, I'm also saying it's not just a gun issue. It's everything. It's like, it's all of it.
It's like a 1,000-piece puzzle is what it is.
Yeah.
And unless we start working on all these little pieces, not one thing is going to solve the problem, but working on each
including putting them to jail forever.
Right. Including putting them to jail forever. People are saying, and that's the other thing in the US is we need to crack down and be tougher on crime. We incarcerate like 20 times more people in the United States than like any other country in the world. Clearly, if it was that simple, we would live in the safest country in the world. I mean, we have all the guns. We incarcerate people like nobody's business, and we still have a crazy crime rate. So,
that was the point I was going to make earlier. Like, next to China, you have by far the most people in prison in the world.
Totally. Yeah.
Like per capita, not just.
Oh yeah, I know. Like when you see those like graphs, like the United States is like way farther than any other first world country in there, and I think with the death penalty too, I think we have the death penalty, and I think with that
depending on the state.
Yes, depending on the state. But if you look at the US compared to like the rest of the world, I think only countries like there have been years where we've executed more people than like some countries in the Middle East.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know why these facts and this type of data doesn't I don't know. I think it's just because people are taught one thing. I used to believe in the death penalty too, until I learned a lot more about these cases. I remember when Scott Peterson, I don't know if you remember that case, this guy murdered his pregnant wife. She was 9 months pregnant, and it was like a big story in California. And I was like, I hope he gets the death penalty. Like that guy deserves it. And I, of course, I still get there's people like Ted Bundy, maybe he deserved the death penalty, but I think unless it's unless you're like a serial killer, I don't know, how does killing someone else bring peace? I don't know. I just.
No, I agree. I'm not pro death penalty either,
Yeah.
with a caveat, because some
Right.
people are just like, why keep them alive?
Right. Like Ted
But
Bundy, like, is a hard case to argue because he did escape prison twice, and one of the times he went on to murder like 30 more women. So
yeah.
like I get that we had to, maybe the world is better off without Ted Bundy in it, but
But for a 20-year-old kid who robbed a gas station and shot someone,
yeah.
don't get me wrong, they should
Right.
do
They
their
did their
time and everything,
time. Totally.
but they are also very,
Yeah.
their mind is moldable still to be able to, they can be good people still. And
Yeah.
anyway,
And people can be rehabilitated. I mean,
that's the word I was trying to
yeah.
say. Yeah. Just to say, well, death penalty for him.
Right.
But,
Right.
anyway,
I just,
I gotta say, as a Canadian, it is fascinating.
Oh, I can imagine. I mean, I have family in the UK, and every time I'm with them, we talk about all these things, and they couldn't believe that you only get like 10 days of vacation here in the US. Like, they couldn't wrap their brain around that. Like, I'm like, yeah, like my job in my 20s, I worked for an insurance agency, and you got 10 days, and that included sick time. So like if you got sick, yeah, like if you got sick, like really sick, like one year I wanted to go see my family for Thanksgiving, and I got a really bad flu like that summer, and I had to be out of work for like 3 days. And I remember on like day 4, I went to work like coughing, sneezing, like with a fever still, because I couldn't take extra time off because I wanted to be able to see my parents that November, and I have to fly there.
What?
So like, yes, like that's just
No wonder
normal
COVID
here.
spread so quick.
I know. I mean, like you can't, that's, so
Well,
now companies might give you a week of sick time and 2 weeks, 10 days off for vacation. But that's that's like a good company out here.
yeah.
I mean, are you guys, what is it like in Canada? Like in the UK, it's like a minimum of 4 weeks or something.
Well, the longer you are with the company, then it's like every 5 years you get more days. I think to start, it's usually, I think it's 2 weeks. I think
2 weeks.
And then I think you get a day and a quarter per month sick leave that you can accumulate.
Okay.
And like if you have a baby, you're off for a year.
Right.
And your position is still there. And you could split that year up with your husband. So your husband could take 6 months off and you could take 6 months off. You don't get full wage, but it's like 80% or something like that.
Yes. Actually, a friend of mine lives in Victoria, and this is what they did. And they told me this. And again, mind blown.
And cost nothing to have the baby delivered.
Oh.
You don't have to save up
$10,000
to have a baby.
I can't even imagine. Like I had my daughter on a Thursday night, and my husband was back to work on Monday, and we did that so that he could take a week off after my mom came, because she came to help for like a week. And like literally like maybe 10 days. And I mean, he worked 12-hour days. I was home with that baby by myself for all that time, and it was very hard. And
that's unbelievable.
Yeah. Now we do have, things have changed. I mean, she's almost 18. Things have gotten better where we do now have some paid parental leave, and companies have started to allow the father to take time off too. But it's still nothing like that. I mean, in our wildest dreams, I can't even imagine taking 6 months and still. It's crazy. Yeah. So that's wonderful.
Both my kids, with both my kids, my wife took the entire time, because I would have gone crazy.
Right. Well,
like, I know how I am. I'm just like, and she was more than willing to stay at home. Yes. So I was like, great, you do it.
But for her to be able to stay home that year, not lose her job, get 80% wage, I mean, that's such a blessing. I mean, you guys are so lucky. You guys must feel, I'm sure everything in Canada isn't perfect. I don't know if I could handle your winters. They might send me to the nut house, but at the same time, like, your policies are very humane and caring for your citizens, you know?
For the most part. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. It's not perfect, and I mean,
Yeah.
I have a lot to bitch about
Yeah,
at
I'm
times.
sure. But at
But
least you're
then,
not
yeah.
here.
Yeah, exactly.
I just think that people need to use their voices to get involved in causes that they really care about. I think that that is very important. Whatever it is that you care about personally, whether it's mental health advocacy, you know, for me, I work a lot on gun violence prevention here in the States, but it could be, you know, you're part of the LGBTQ community, or you care about the homeless, or you care about, I mean, whatever it is, you care about schools. I think a lot of people, we were taught not to talk about politics when we were young, not to talk about our government, not to talk about religion, things like that. It was taboo. But I think that people need to understand that these things, especially politics, they do affect your everyday life. And if you want, one thing that everybody I think should do is find something that matters to them and do something to get involved on that issue.
What if it's pro-gun?
Well, there are
You said
people,
everyone.
yes. I mean, we do have people who feel that way. You know, I have to respect that they feel as strongly as they do as I do. I do feel like that's part of living in a free country, or it's supposedly a free country, and First Amendment rights. And
Free country with the highest amount of incarceration.
yes, highest amount of incarceration, and yes, and by far the amount of gun violence. But you know, I
it is polarizing, the
it's
states,
very
because I mean, there's
polarizing.
so many wonderful things. Like, I've traveled in the States before and stuff, and it's like, oh my God, they've got it right here.
Yeah.
And then in a lot of ways, and then other ways I'm like, you know, this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh my God.
Yes. I mean, there are wonderful,
it really is like the extremes.
It is the extremes. It is the extremes. And, you know, but I think everybody should try to make the world a better place. I think if everybody spent a little more time and energy outside of their own lives, just contributing to something, then I think the world would be a better place.
Well said. Okay, I'm gonna hit stop. Be sure to subscribe and to like this video. You can listen on Apple Podcast and Spotify. This is Todd Rennebaum saying, make your beds and take your meds. Keep watching for more interviews with incredible people telling their stories of resilience and adversity with mental health and mental illness.